Sometimes the protagonist catches himself thinking that he misses the days when he made the arduous journey to Tianzhu in search of Buddhist scriptures. He will never forget his faithful companions who were with him then. Crybaby Samdan, who always said only the right things. A horse named White Dragon silently defended his master, Samdan. Joe Palagier, the perpetually troublemaking troublemaker, but charming. Sang Young is a quiet guy, but could be quite annoying at times. At the head of all these amazing people was him, the protagonist of today's story, baring his fangs at the world and unable to hide his ferocity, a man named Sun Wukong. However, everything that bound these people to each other is already in the past. Thinking about it, one might realize that all those memories would only be good for drunken fairy tales now. Wukong and his partners were true friends, though the guy himself didn't realize it at the time. The journey ended 300 years ago. All his companions are long gone to the afterlife. The guy thought that he would be able to rest for a while in the heavenly realm and attain the state of Buddha. Unfortunately, very soon the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong, was visited by an uninvited guest. The Lord of Compassion Bodhisattva reported to the lad that the name of one of his former partners, Samdan, had disappeared from both the heavenly register and the book of life and death of the underworld. The last trace of Samdan's soul was found in Anhui province in the human world. The place is called Namgung clan. Apparently, the Lord of Compassion came to Wukong to ask him to come down to the realm of men and sort things out. Such an offer did not make the great sage very happy. He reminded the servant of Buddha that 300 years ago, he had made him work in a similar way and literally made a slave out of him. The Bodhisattva tried to convince Wukong that no one but he could do it. Of course, the monsters of the lower realm had long been destroyed, and even the 7 great saints of the world were gone. However, humans could soon become a big threat. A creature inferior to Wukong in strength would be too dangerous to descend to the lower realm. Wukong was not at all convinced by this speech. Looking at the Bodhisattva irritably, he asked if he had completely lost his mind after thousands of years of serving the Buddha as an errand boy. Trying to reassure the boy, the Bodhisattva explained that the world had changed a lot in those 300 years. The Buddha strictly divided the realms, and so when a being from the upper realm descends to the lower realm, he loses much of his heavenly power. But Sun Wukong is different. Even if his heavenly power is sealed, in the lower world, he would still be able to use Yorik's demonic energy. No one will dare to stand in his way. All these pathetic attempts to convince him to come down only made Wukong laugh. Smiling grimly, he advised the Lord not to underestimate him, for he was no longer that old monkey as he had been in the past. There's no way he's letting you keep a leash on him anymore. Activating the demonic energy, Wukong pounced on the Compassion Lord at full speed. His head was splitting. As he began to regain consciousness, Sun Wukong heard the voices of people he didn't know. Still not understanding what had happened, he opened his eyes and saw 2 men sitting with their backs to him, discussing their failed robbery with annoyance. While the bulky man muttered that he couldn't even expect those Sukwamun bastards to be there, Wukong finally began to recall what had happened to him. The Bodhisattva easily repelled his attack with the Buddha's palm. After that, the Lord of Compassion sealed the guy with another 100 such palms. Thus, by the Buddha's decree, the Bodhisattva sent the great sage equal of heaven, Sun Wukong, to the world of martial arts. Understanding that it was too late to regret, Wukong looked around and guessed that he had spawned in a prison for some reason. From these 2 dudes sitting in the same cell with him, he felt a strange energy that doesn't exist in heaven. Well, it was finally clear that the guy had indeed been forcibly descended to the lower world. Looking at his hands, Wukong noticed that there were shackles on his forearms. Now that it has come to this, he has no choice but to fulfill the Bodhisattva's request. He must find Samdan's soul as quickly as possible and return back. As the boy walked nonchalantly to the door of the prison chamber, the shocked cellmates couldn't believe that he had broken the shackles so easily with his bare hands. Grabbing the bars, Wukong easily slid them apart and opened the passage to the outside. Everything that was happening at that moment in the jail cell could not be explained. Looking at this nonsense, the 2 prisoners just kept silent and waited to see what this kid would do next that was so impossible. Wukong heard quiet, startled breathing behind him and turned around. In his eyes, he is able to see a world of consciousness that is invisible to humans. There's obviously something between him and that bearded prisoner. In Buddhism, it's called the thread of destiny. Simply put, the guy smelled a connection from their past lives. Moving closer to the cellmates, Wukong also threw off their shackles and ordered them to follow him so he could lead them outside. Sun Wukong's encounter with the bearded man had apparently been arranged by the Bodhisattva. The Lord had set him up with the guide to make it easier for him to find Samdan's soul. Stretching their arms a little, the freed prisoners thanked the great warrior. As the three men exited the cell, a guard, already holding his sword at the ready, blocked their path. Since Wukong doesn't really like killing, he politely asked the guard to step aside. Unfortunately, the man not only threatened him, but also called him a mixed-blood foreigner. The guy was very quick to let the guard know that he had made a fatal mistake. In a lightning jerk, Wukong grabbed the poor fellow by the face and in one simple movement threw him out into the street, punching a hole in the wall. A loud rumble echoed throughout the neighborhood, so very quickly guards began to gather near the scene. Peering into the cloud of smoke, the perplexed warrior saw three dark silhouettes. Also not fully understanding what they had just seen, the short prisoner asked his brother how this dude could move so fast. The bearded man advised his friend to be quiet and follow the great warrior. Suddenly turning to the bearded man, Wukong asked if he knew where the Namgung clan was. The guide replied that he knew that very well, and told him that the greatest sword clan in the world was very famous in many ways. Well, that was enough information for Wukong. From now on, this bearded dude would be his official guide. And if the one also does not want to agree amicably, as that already not very whole guard, the guy offered a slightly different option to solve this problem. Taking the hint very quickly, the bearded man promised to accompany the great warrior properly for his kindness. The carefree conversation between the two was interrupted by some old man emerging from the crowd of guards. Asking these jerks what they were doing here, the stranger introduced himself as the master of the Sokwa clan, the fierce wolf of Hubei, Li Sangyup. Trying again to negotiate amicably, Wukong gives the clan master an ultimatum. He would take the bearded man and that little friend with him, and in return he would promise to forget that Sokwa had imprisoned him. This kind of attitude angered Li Sangyup. Noticing that the boy was acting like he was some kind of jade emperor, the old man asked who the hell he thought he was. Scowling a satisfied smile, Wukong realized that there was nothing more to be done. Since these people want to know who's standing in front of them, he'll have to introduce himself to them. Beneath a flower-fruited mountain, beyond the distant sea, a stone monkey created by the sky and molded by the earth. The handsome monkey king, Mihu Wan, the lord of the monkeys with golden fur, Jeom Mo Wang Hu. He who rules the heavens, the greatest star and sage in the world. He is none other than the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong. This fiery speech was beyond praise. Wukong was sure that everyone here would weep at the honor of meeting such a great being. However, very soon the boy heard only raging laughter breaking out. Nobody had any idea what the hell this dude was talking about. What the heck is a great sage equal to the heavens? Deciding that this guy was just crazy, Li Sangyup ordered one of his punishers to take care of him. The warrior stepped up close to the blonde-haired jerk and, holding his blade to his neck, advised the kid to go back inside if he didn't want to be stabbed. In just a moment, Wukong had literally disappeared from the punisher's sight. Lifting their heads, Li Sangyup and his charges saw their comrade flying helplessly high in the sky. What followed was a powerful windstorm that began to demolish buildings and people. Those who managed to stay on the ground turned around and saw that half of their clan building had literally turned into ruins. The enraged Li Sangyup, still not understanding how this could happen, gave orders to his warriors to finish off this dirty-haired bastard. A crowd of enraged punishers, waving their swords, ran towards Wukong. They all made a huge mistake today. Sung Wukong can tolerate being insulted by his parents, but he can't tolerate being insulted by a dirty-haired or half-breed type. After shortening the distance with the target, one of the warriors endowed his sword with some kind of energy and was already ready to chop the guy in half. It was from this point that the exorcism began. Spinning around as if in a dance, Wukong ran into the crowd of opponents and began to fist punch them one by one. During the fight, the guy noticed that a strange aura suddenly began to ooze around these dudes. With each passing second, his opponent stopped faster and harder. But this was still not enough to overpower a great sage equal to heaven. Following his masterful fist strikes, Wukong also used his legs to fight, which he used to stop his enemies from coming within close range. That aura seemed quite familiar to him. It was actually the remnants of demonic energy left in the mortal realm. Over time, the essence of this energy was purified. Merging with nature, people unconsciously absorbed it, perfected and cultivated it. They later dubbed it Nagin's internal energy. After freeing himself enough room to maneuver, Wukong threw the man next to him away from him, into the crowd of his comrades with a single sweep of his arm. People have pleasantly surprised the guy today. The whole battle seemed quite amusing to him. It had been a long time since he'd enjoyed fighting like this. However, no matter how strong the moderns were, it was enough for Wukong to give them a couple slaps to knock them out. Their strength appeared to be at completely different levels. To a great sage equal to the heavens, the abilities of these people were nothing more than a simple child's play. It wasn't until he faced off against Sung Wukong that everyone gathered here realized how colossal the difference in strength was. This guy is incredibly strong. He had only minutes to finish off an entire army of the Seokwa clan. Having finally calmed his bloodlust, Wukong promised his victims that he would take care of the money they had dropped on the ground. As it turned out, he was even more skillful at stealing than his two new guides. While searching the pockets of the warriors he defeated, the guy noticed something interesting. Next to the battered Lee Sangyop was some kind of box. From this box, Wukong took out an incomprehensible object, and with a puzzled expression on his face, he began to examine it. The old man who was watching his actions shouted to the bastard to put the object back now. If he touched it, his hands would be chopped off. In response, the blonde-haired guy decided to check with the Seokwa clan master to see if he knew what he was carrying. And he better answer that question properly. Where exactly did you get this item? Those ominous words thundered in his head. The man standing in front of him was like the personification of an ancient monster. Shivering in fear, Lee Sangyop replied that he had no idea where the thing came from. It just appeared one day. Also, he heard someone had put a bounty on the item. They said they would pay money to whoever found it. On this day, Lee Sangyop and his men were to meet the customer at the Yenhuan Hotel down the road. The wanted man's name is Sahi. In the lay public, this man is known as an extremely despicable person who has killed dozens of people. In fact, he even killed a member of the Namgung clan and managed to survive. The Namgung clan is still hunting for him, but they have not been able to catch him. After thinking over all the new information, Wukong looked pensively at the object in his hand. Afterward, he suggested that his companions hurry to the Yenhuan Inn. Instead of going to the Namgung clan empty-handed now, the boy felt it necessary to grab Sahi and take him with him. The Namgung would give him a much warmer welcome that way. Besides, while people are suffering from this moral freak, how can the great sage equal to heaven's Sun Wukong just sit back and watch the villain walk free? The great sage Sun Wukong, my ass? This dude is undoubtedly insanely powerful, but the way he calls himself makes his companions think he's really a lunatic. The three soon reached a fairly large settlement, which was to be the inn they were looking for. As they walked through the streets of the city, they collected puzzled looks from the inhabitants. The short man looked around and informed his brother Hen that everyone was staring at them strangely, and the behavior of the inhabitants was quite logical. Absolutely anyone would stare at someone who looked like this strange foreigner. After some time wandering around the city, the three finally found the right building. When they came to sit at a table in the hotel dining room, the employee asked if they wanted to order. First of all, ignoring the employee, Wukong wondered if there was anyone strange among the visitors here. Someone who came alone, or someone with an odd atmosphere. Someone who looks tough. Without waiting for the innkeeper's response, the guy ordered to tell the man to come and pick up the goods from the Seokwa clan. After voicing such an unusual request, Wukong tossed the waiter a pouch of money and added to bring them food and drinks. Very quickly, the workers in the dining room set the table for the unusual guest. Pouring some sake into a pitcher, Wukong decided to show his companions a trick of non-contact disappearance of booze. The boy lowered his head sharply and spat out the pile. Looking at the dishes with annoyance, he realized that everything that was happening to him now was fate. Just when Samdan's soul disappeared, a heavenly artifact appeared in the lower realm, and now people are searching for it here. If Wukong could figure out where this thing came from, perhaps he could find a clue to Samdan's lost soul. Coming out of his frustration, the boy noticed the strange expressions on the faces of his companions. He wondered why they looked so uneasy. Could it be that they were afraid? Hen in turn explained to the great warrior that the rumors that had been circulating about Sahi were horrifying. Many Muram Alliance masters had died trying to catch him, more than 10 if the stories were to be believed. 5 years ago, Sahi was declared a public enemy of Muram, and he has yet to be caught. He had finished off 5 beggars from Gabang and escaped, and the count of civilians he had slaughtered was already running into the dozens. After hearing all these stories, Wukong realized that they were sending only weaklings after this guy. And besides, his companions had only heard rumors about Sahi. But had they ever seen him in person? As soon as the guy asked this, someone's gruff voice was heard. A man who appeared in the inn's dining room remarked that fools like this boy had rushed at him time after time, and each of them ended up spilling their blood and losing their heads. The person who stepped confidently out to Wukong, nonchalantly sipping sake, turned out to be the one he was looking for. Public enemy of the Muram Alliance, Sahi. Pouring some more sake into his drinking bowl, Wukong agreed that humans certainly have some interesting tricks. It's quite amusing. However, their abilities are nothing more than simple child's play to a great sage equal to the heavens. Looking puzzled at the strange fellow, Sahi noticed that he wasn't from the Stone Flower Gate. But it didn't matter at all. Public Enemy asked if Wukong had that item with him, to which the guy replied that he did indeed have the sword fragment. Sahi asked the stranger suspiciously if he was going to bargain with him. Wukong in turn advised the man to take his time and sit down for a drink with him. In a previous life, these two were sworn enemies. Taking out a mysterious object from behind his sinus, Wukong showed it to his public enemy. Sahi's not-so-expressed reaction made him realize that the man wasn't actually the direct customer of the thing. If he had known what the item was, he wouldn't have reacted this way. The only thing Wukong wanted to know now was the identity of the person who was truly using Sahi for his own purposes. He must be incredibly powerful. After asking his public enemy to relax that wrinkled face, the guy explained that he was just testing him. From his observations, he could tell that this dude was just a small-timer. Sahi did not tolerate this disrespectful attitude and immediately attacked the insolent asshole, smashing several tables in the dining room with a single blow. Sensing that all hell was about to break loose here, Wukong's companions, along with the other visitors, began to make their way out. Meanwhile, Wukong himself only shook off his shoulder and remarked that he was annoyed by people who didn't know their place. They're always pulling out their swords instead of having a normal conversation. When Sahi came at him again, hoping to stab him with his blades, Wukong only swung his arm, deflecting this lightning-fast strike. Initially, it seemed to the companions that this fellow faced the sword with his bare hands. However, upon closer inspection, they noticed that he was actually using that short piece of metal instead of a weapon. Who was even capable of fighting with such a useless object? Sahi was just as surprised at what had happened. The guy who'd fought him in the fight hadn't used any particular form or style. But in doing so, he acted so recklessly that it was almost impossible to anticipate his movements. Not a single attack by the public enemy reached its goal. This made Sahi realize that the Supreme Master is now against him. He is just playing with his victim. Realizing very quickly that he could not win in this way, the public enemy jumped away from his opponent. To avoid going to feed on this monster, all Sahi had to do was gather all his inner power and release it in one strike. In the blink of an eye, the man concentrated all the available internal energy, cloaking himself in a powerful aura. Smiling, Wukong said that he knew who Sahi was. While he was saying that, the public enemy had already rushed towards him at full speed. "You are a mountain serpent with 7 knots." After saying those words, Wukong had no trouble stopping his opponent's attack by grabbing his wrist. He realized Saha's secret very quickly, and so there was no point in dodging. Instead, he released demonic energy to test their connection. All this time, he had been playing along with his victim to make this check. But unfortunately, Wukong didn't see the deep connection between the two of them. After explaining this to the public enemy, the fellow pulled him by the arm, after which he powerfully struck him with his head on the forehead. With this blow, he pierced Sahi's skull and looked at him indifferently. Abruptly turning around, Wukong threw the agonizing opponent into the wall with all his might. All the tables in the dining room turned to splinters, and food scattered all over the place. Kneading his fist, Wukong advised the public enemy to pray to Buddha if he thought he was going to die soon. After all, the guy himself is also a Buddha who has already achieved enlightenment. He is too merciful to kill a soul begging for mercy. Watching all this, the companions could not believe their eyes. A blood-iron ghost, someone that even the military alliance had been unable to catch for years. He had fallen so easily from the crazy Sung Wukong without even showing any resistance. Once again, grabbing his public enemy by the collar, Wukong smacked him in the chin and threw him off his back. As he approached the battered Sahi, he took stock of the bastard's lack of courage. In fact, the guy seemed to think he could hold out longer. If he killed people and dies like that, he needs to reflect on his sins. Otherwise, what would be the point of his reincarnation? He will be born again and continue to do his evil deeds. Remembering what Wukong had told him after the first blow, Sahi realized that if he didn't comply, who would die for real? Kneeling down in front of the guy, the public enemy made a prayerful gesture with his hands and addressed the Buddha. With a smile of hope, he called out to the Bodhisattva. In the next second, his head was slammed into the ground at breakneck speed. The angry Wukong had been trying to be patient the whole time. However, that bastard was really rotten through and through. He should have been on his knees begging for his life, but instead he spat in the face of his only hope of survival. Heartily kicking the public enemy away, Wukong began to look around, hoping to find a drink lying on the ground to dull that nasty feeling of disappointment in people. Staring at him perplexedly, Hen and his lowly brother tried to figure out what the Bodhisattva had displeased him with. Meanwhile, the still-alive Sahi saw a weak spot. Taking advantage of the fact that his opponent had turned his back, the public enemy activated his internal energy and flew out of the inn in one dash. Hen, who saw this, brought it to the great warrior's attention. This kind of behavior from Sahi only made Wukong laugh. He played out a cool scene with that deep voice, but now that he's been beaten, he's shown his true nature. Anyway, this public enemy isn't completely stupid. He escaped at just the right moment. While explaining all of this to his buddies, Wukong tore the hair of his head and blew it off. Then, hugging his companions, the guy suggested going somewhere else and finishing the meal there. He was too lazy to catch the coward. A while later, crossing the sea by boat, Sahi wondered what he should do next. If he went back to his master now, he'd be in big trouble. In such a case, public enemy has no choice but to ask for Hanmado's help. This brute he had to fight today is dumb, but his skills are undoubtedly top-notch. However, if Sahi and Hanmado join forces, they can definitely pull it off. At least that's what Sahi thinks. Shit, what the hell is that mosquito doing here? It's so annoying. At the same time, Wukong, who was sitting in a boat on the shore of the same sea, was scratching his ear. Sitting next to him, Hen wondered to the great warrior if he had really let Sahi go on purpose. Wukong in turn explained that he let him go because of the item he was looking for. It was obvious from his reaction that he didn't know what it was. Well, that was not surprising, for to an ignorant person, this thing was just a piece of scrap metal. If someone ordered him to get the item, he'll probably run back to report it to his superiors. Simply put, the guy expects to catch both the middleman and the customer. But in such a case, it still leaves the question of how he can be sure that this man will not escape with the help of the sea. The answer turns out to be very simple. Wukong just follows what he sees. And that hair he ripped off his head at the inn helps him do it. Even though the great sage lost most of his heavenly powers when he went down, he can still use small tricks such as hair magic. One of his hairs turned into a mosquito. Right now, he's tracking down a bloody iron ghost. Who is he? The great sage, equal to the heavens, son Wukong. For him, something like this is a piece of cake. After standing in his trademark stance again for a bit, Wukong noticed the strange expression on Hen's face. He realized very quickly that the man was frantically cringing at him. Speaking of which, while we're on the subject, who was this bearded man in a previous life? The bond between him and Wukong is very strong, and so it didn't give the guy any peace in any way. Coughing awkwardly, Hen suggested his comrades to hurry up. They were chasing the public enemy first, and so the others would be chasing him as well. In response, Wukong asked his companion not to worry. Even if others tried to thwart his plan, they wouldn't be able to stop him. A few days ago, another continent, the residence of the greatest sword family under heaven, the Namgung clan. The Namgung clan's reputation was unrivaled. They were at the top of the 5 great clans and were considered the pinnacle of righteous martial arts. But among the common people, their reputation was not so good. During the great war between good and evil, their actions against the villains were too ruthless. Even their allies in the righteous martial arts world had begun to fear the Namgung clan. These days, that fear only continues to spread. This girl brushing her hair in front of the mirror thinks about it often. She had long ago convinced herself that their Namgung clan needed a change. She is the master of the Namgung clan law enforcement hall, and her name is Manhwa. Putting down her hairbrush, the girl whispered that their clan should stop swinging their swords blindly. Like Wudong or Shaolin, they must be kind, just, and sometimes even merciful to their enemies. But their overlord sees the hypocrisy in all of this. Namgung clan, Huangbo clan, Jagal clan, and Sichuan clan, and also the Hebel clan. The young heirs of the 5 great families will gather here at Namgung residence in 1 month for the meeting of dragons and phoenixes. Before the meeting, the Namgung clan must demonstrate the changed image, and the master of the law and order hall, Manhwa, is obliged to facilitate this. As soon as the girl emerged from the bathroom, one of the servants turned to her and reported that the lord had urgently summoned all the masters of the hall. That seemed unusual to Manhwa. Urgent summoning of hall masters doesn't happen for routine matters. Was something wrong? Soon everyone was assembled and the lord was ready to make the announcement. This man standing on the stage in front of his men is named Namgung Jinbek, and he is the lord of the clan. The reason he has summoned everyone here today is because of an urgent message he received from Manga Hall. Right now, a blood iron ghost has appeared in Anhui province. The lord reminded the hall masters that they were the first to come forward to fight in the Great War, and therefore could not allow evil sects to threaten the martial arts world. They must not fight for themselves, but to protect fathers, sons, mothers, and daughters. And now, the bloody iron ghost that killed their families has appeared before them. This time, even the elders and the clan lord personally would track him down. Asking those gathered here to look at the bamboo strips they had been given, Namgung Jinbek ordered the masters to go to their designated places and find the bloodthirsty ghost and capture it. Looking seriously at his subordinates, the clan ruler asked if they understood everything. The hall masters immediately stood at attention and promised the lord to do their best. The next moment, the meeting was over and the Namgung clan's men set out to fulfill the task at hand. This is their chance. If they catch Saha's bloody iron ghost and announce it publicly, people will not only treat them differently, also, as the organizers of the Dragons and Phoenix meeting, their influence would be greatly strengthened, with the top figures of the Namgung clan moving. Who could possibly stop them? The story goes back to the days when Sahi managed to escape from Wukong. While crossing the sea, Public Enemy crossed paths with a boat carrying two unfamiliar men with swords and dressed in blue. The one holding the oar was named Chok and the other Sion. They both came from the Namgung family. Looking at his older brother, Chok mentally reported to him that they had finally found the bloody ghost. Now they were faced with the question of whether they should signal the head of the family or the elders. If they did, the Public Enemy might suspect something and run away. At the same time, they are not allowed to kill him. The master of the law enforcement hall has ordered that he be captured alive. She wants him turned over to the Murim Alliance for trial. However, if he fiercely resists, he will still have to be killed. Seon is not afraid of anything. What does shame matter? They are the Namgung clan, and so they will not allow such a brat to live. While the boy was pondering this, some strange sound was heard. Seeing the leak in the boat, the two Namgung warriors casually shrieked in surprise. Seon realized very quickly that they had made a terrible mistake. Sahi heard the shouts and turned his attention to the boat keeping close to him. Looking closer, he saw the people on that boat had blue scabbards with a white stripe. These people are definitely from the Namgung clan. But how did they end up here? Only after noticing them, the bloody ghost began to hide in the fog. Watching their boat fill with water, Chok tried to figure out where the breach could have come from. They had deliberately chosen a sturdy ship. Unless there was a violent collision, it shouldn't be damaged. It was obviously a hole artificially created with internal energy. Suspecting that the blood iron ghost had accomplices, the two Namgung warriors prepared to fight. It doesn't matter if Sahi escapes from them. Their Namgung family members are constantly tightening the encirclement ring, and he'll be caught eventually anyway. Right now, they need to deal with the Public Enemy's subordinates. Filling the sword with internal energy, Seon noticed a suspicious gurgling of water behind him. With a sweep of his blade, the guy struck at the spot where the enemy was supposedly hiding. Sahi still couldn't understand where the Namgung family members had popped up from. He had just gotten rid of that eccentric guy, but suddenly there was a new problem. Even among non-Orthodox sects, the Blood Demon clan is rumored to be the most violent. They are the blood relatives of the Namgung family. The rumors about the lord of the Namgung clan are especially horrible. They say he opens his chest and kicks his heart like a ball, while drinking madly and laughing hysterically. While Sahi was thinking about how he didn't want to fall into the hands of such a madman, he heard a strange sound not far away from him. A man swimming toward him asked Public Enemy if he enjoyed the boat ride. At what he saw, the bloody ghost froze in fear. Meanwhile, the Namgung clan's men grabbed the man who was blowing bubbles at their side. Throwing the subordinate bloody ghost to his deck, Seon ordered him to speak now as to where his master was headed. The injured, stunted man in turn only looked helplessly at the Namgung man and could not reply anything. At the same moment, they felt that there was something else below. In a moment, the boat they were standing on seemed to explode, splitting in two. The two Namgung clan brothers landed on the wreckage without any problems. The lean man, holding onto his wounded shoulder, saw his brother swimming toward him. His little brother's behavior really pissed Hen off. He said he was going alone, so why did that idiot follow him and get caught? Apologizing to the bearded man, the short man said in tears that he was in a lot of pain. Laying his brother down on the wreckage of the boat, Hen stopped the bleeding and bandaged the wound. After that, he gave the Namgung family's people a creepy look and promised to take care of those guys. At the same time, Seon attacked the stranger who had interrupted them with his internal energy. However, to his surprise, the bearded man easily dodged it. Moreover, taking advantage of the rising tide, he completely disappeared from sight and concealed his presence. Noticing that this guy's movements in the water were unusual, Chan had picked up on the fact that even so, he was going to have to rise to the surface sooner or later to get a breath of air. Yes, the best option right now is to just wait. The source and main way of storing internal energy is breathing. It is natural. Now they need to aim for a time when he wants to breathe. Meanwhile, Hen had no idea what he should do next. His brother Bepsi had a badly injured shoulder. It's all that bastard's fault. Just now, Sun Wukong's group. Hen noticed that it was impossible to see even an inch ahead in this fog. Even if there was no prohibition on sailing, no boat would have gone out in this thick fog today. Initially, it seemed to him that looking for a blood iron ghost ship in a place like this was comparable to madness. But, unbeknownst to him, Wukong still managed to do so. Looking at the boat they were looking for with a satisfied smile, Wukong noted that his companion had apparently not expected to see it here. But very soon they discovered another vessel. Who are these people? I don't think they're here by chance. Are they from the Muram Alliance? But Wukong thought it was strange that the Muram people were only sailing in twos. Don't they try to stay in large groups? Then Bepse pointed out to his comrades that these strangers both have blue scabbards with white stripes. They are the masters of the Namgung clan. Nothing but fate had strangely intertwined Wukong and the Namgung members. Who would have thought they would cross paths in a place like this? Hen reminded the great warrior that they were going to visit the Namgung clan's residence anyway, and in that case, it would be easier to help them, wouldn't it? Then go and punch some holes in this ship, Wukong suddenly said. Not fully understanding what the master meant, Hen decided to clarify whether he was talking about the Blood Ghost boat. Of course not. Wukong was talking about the Namgung family's ship. But why would he need it just when the Namgung clan was about to capture their nemesis? In response to the questioning look on his companion's face, Wukong asked him not to worry. The fellow would catch the bloody ghost himself and clear up the misunderstanding. All Hen needs to do is dive in and make a hole. Otherwise, if Wukong just steals the already captured blood ghost from their imprisonment, he will become their nemesis. And after all, he still has a lot of things to ask Sahi. For example, who his superior is. Seeing the man standing on the ship in front of him, the public enemy went into a stupor. So, did you enjoy the boat ride? Wukong inquired, looking creepily at Sahi.
Pet the cat.